Touring the United States by Joan Nichols. Capitals at a glance. Each state capital or center of government has its own story. Kings and queens once ruled in Honolulu, Hawaii. Paul Revere once rode on horseback through the streets of Boston, Massachusetts. A huge bat colony makes its home in Austin, Texas. While visiting each state's capital, you can also tour the Capitol. You can see where major events in United States history happened. You can also have fun. Depending on which capital you visit, you might see a race, swim at a popular beach, or visit a roller skating museum. California's capital. Sacramento, the state capital of California, is a good place to start our tour of the state capitals. Built in the 1800s, its capital is a history museum and a government office. The historic offices on the first floor have been restored to how they once were. Californians call Sacramento the gateway to the gold country. In 1839, a Swiss man named John Sutter set up a colony here for people arriving from Switzerland. He called it New Helvetia, which means New Switzerland. He also set up a trading post called Sutter's Fort. When gold was found there in 1848, the gold rush was on. With gold miners rushing to the area from all over the world, the colony grew quickly. Renamed Sacramento, the town became a miners' supply post. Buildings from those days still line the waterfront in Old Sacramento. At Sutter's Fort State Historic Park, the original settlement has been rebuilt to show how it once was. Pony Express riders made Sacramento their final stop. The Transcontinental Railroad, which was completed in the 1800s, also made Sacramento its final stop. You can see locomotives from that time at the California State Railroad Museum. Faraway capitals. The state capitals of Alaska and Hawaii are far from the United States mainland. To get to them, you must travel by plane or by ship. In other ways, however, chilly Juneau, Alaska, and warm Honolulu, Hawaii, could not be more different from each other. Juneau has a mix of old and new buildings. A ride up steep Mount Roberts gives you a great view of the city. You can also see Gastineau Channel on the other side. Be sure to visit nearby Mendenhall Glacier. This 1.5 mile wide sheet of ice is amazing. As the glacier slowly moves, parts of it break off and form icebergs in Mendenhall Lake. The Alaska State Museum in downtown Juneau has displays that celebrate the city's Inuit and Russian pasts. Look for the statue of a grizzly bear at the state capitol. It is a long flight to Honolulu, Hawaii. The city is more than 2,000 miles from San Francisco, California. Honolulu is called the crossroads of the Pacific. This is because ships and planes traveling to and from Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and the mainland United States land here. Kings and queens once ruled in Honolulu. You can visit Iolani Palace, the only royal palace in the United States. Queen Liliuokalani, Hawaii's last royal ruler, lived here until 1893. That year, the monarchy, a government ruled by a king or queen, ended. Hawaii became part of the United States 5 years later. You can also visit the museums and memorials at Pearl Harbor. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed the United States Naval Base there. That attack caused the United States to enter World War II. Southwestern capitals. Thousands of years ago, American Indians, called the Hohokam, lived in a dry area near the Salt River in Arizona. They built an irrigation system, a way of using canals, ditches, or pipes to bring water to dry land. Phoenix, Arizona, is built on these ancient ruins. The city is named for a mythical bird from Greek and Egyptian mythology. Austin, Texas has the largest urban bat population in North America. About 1 million Mexican free-tail bats live under a bridge over the Colorado River. At sunset every summer evening, they fly out searching for dinner, bugs, Santa Fe, New Mexico is the oldest capital in the United States. Since 1607, Spain, Mexico, and the United States have ruled it. The Palace of the Governors is located in the Central Plaza and has displays that showcase the city's history. Santa Fe is a favorite place for many artists. The Museum of Indian Art and Culture displays Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache arts and crafts. The state capitol is made to look like an American Indian sun sign that represents the circle of life. On April 22, 1889, the United States government opened the Oklahoma Territory to settlement. More than 10,000 homesteaders raced across the border. These settlers claimed land around the railroad tracks and quickly built a city of tents. Oil and cattle are important to the history of Oklahoma City. Miners first struck oil here in 1928. Today, the city is still a major producer of oil. Oklahoma City has one of the world's largest cattle markets. You can visit the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum to learn about rodeos, western towns, and African American buffalo soldiers. Midwestern capitals. You cannot miss Lincoln, Nebraska, because its capital, the Tower of the Plains, can be seen for miles around. It stands 400 feet high. At the top is a statue of a farmer sowing grain, a good symbol for this grain-growing state of the Great Plains. The prairie, which once stretched as far as the eye could see, is now mostly farmland. Visit the 9-Mile Prairie in Lincoln to see the prairie as it once was. You can also visit the National Museum of Roller Skating, an entire museum devoted to skates and skating. St. Paul, Minnesota is one of the Twin Cities. Minneapolis is the other twin city, but the two cities are not alike. St. Paul is smaller and quieter than its large, busy twin. The cities are on opposite sides of the Mississippi River. St. Paul was built on the site of a French-Canadian trading post called Pig's Eye. For many years, St. Paul was the busiest port on the upper Mississippi. Abraham Lincoln lived in Springfield, Illinois, for the 23 years before he became president. Many of the places that he knew are kept just as they were when he lived there. The railroad station where Lincoln left Springfield to become president is now a museum. You can visit the law office where Lincoln worked and the tomb where he is buried. You can see Lincoln's statue, too, and rub its nose for good luck. Many visitors do this. In fact, the statue's nose color has worn away over the years from so much rubbing. Indianapolis is Indiana's capital. It is also the city of wheels. Car wheels, that is. Every Memorial Day, the famous Indianapolis 500 motor race takes place. Cars go as fast as 200 miles per hour around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for a total of 500 miles. Visitors can take a guided test drive around the track, and racing cars are on display at the Speedway's Hall of Fame. The Brickyard 400 stock car race and the United States national competitions of the International Hot Rod Association also take place in the capital. Indianapolis is home to many businesses related to auto racing. Many regular cars drive through and around this busy capital. Indianapolis's 7 interstate highways and 9 United States highways have earned it the nickname the Crossroads of America. Seen from above, the city of Indianapolis even looks like a wheel. Monument Circle is at the center, and the city streets fan out from it like spokes. Indianapolis is not all about wheels, of course. It is also a popular place for professional sports. Do not forget the city's Children's Museum. It is 5 stories tall and full of many fun things to explore. Southeastern capitals. Montgomery is the capital of Alabama. It was also the first capital of the Confederacy during the Civil War. A star on the Capitol steps marks the spot where Jefferson Davis was sworn in as its president. More than 100 years later, civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech on these same steps. He spoke to 25,000 Americans, both black and white. The group had marched from Selma, Alabama, 43 miles away, in support of civil rights. Earlier, in 1955, there was a famous Montgomery bus boycott that started when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white person. The Civil Rights Memorial in Montgomery honors 40 people who died in the struggle for civil rights. Maya Lin designed the memorial. She is an artist who also designed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Atlanta, Georgia is a modern city with one of the world's busiest airports. To see the old Atlanta, visitors can go under the city to Underground Atlanta. For 50 years, brick streets, gas lights, and old storefronts lay under the bridges that carried traffic through the city. Now 4 blocks of this historic area are open to the public. At the Margaret Mitchell House and Museum, you can see the home of the author of the book Gone with the Wind. The story, which also became a famous movie, tells about the history of Atlanta. During the Civil War, Union soldiers led by General Sherman burned the city almost to the ground. Northeastern capitals. Annapolis, Maryland sits at the mouth of Chesapeake Bay. This capital has 17 miles of shoreline and is home to the United States Naval Academy. Boats fill the city dock, and restaurants serve seafood from the surrounding waters. Many visitors enjoy sightseeing in Annapolis by boat. A statue of Independent Man stands on top of the State House or Capitol in Providence, Rhode Island. Rhode Island is the smallest state in our country. Roger Williams was Rhode Island's first independent man. He was a minister who disagreed with the ideas of the other ministers in Boston. Williams left Boston and started a new colony to the south, Rhode Island. Montpelier, Vermont is the smallest state capital. The Vermont State House is made of a kind of stone called granite. The granite was mined from a huge quarry in the nearby town of Barre. Hartford, Connecticut has been home to 2 famous writers. One was Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Another was Mark Twain, who wrote Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Boston is the capital of Massachusetts. It has so much history crowded into such a small space that it is difficult to see it all. To make it easier, visitors can follow the Freedom Trail, a path that leads visitors to the sites of events that were important to the founding of the United States. During the American Revolution, soldiers trained on Boston Common. The Boston Massacre took place in front of the old State House. The famous patriot Paul Revere lived in the house now known as the Paul Revere House. In the Old North Church, 2 lanterns were lit to show that British troops were headed for Concord.